Happy New Year's, everybody, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Unchained Vodcast, making a mark on crafting. Pun intended. Today's
expect nothing less.
That was an easy one.
It was. It took some thinking, but today's topic, obviously, is crafting. But first, we've got a really exciting year going for us. I mean, it is New Year's, so we might as well talk a little bit about the beginning of the year. We've got Beta 1 coming up eventually, full crafting doc, and maybe a beta update this month. Lots of really exciting stuff to look forward to. I'm obviously a little excited.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. Welcome again, as always, Kriss to the channel, and for the first time for our particular show, Mark Jacobs. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Hey, I saw somebody in the chat said that my voice was a little quiet. Can you guys in chat confirm that I'm good?
Sound good to me.
Yeah, it comes through pretty loud here, but
okay, sound good, apparently.
Okay.
Right. Majority rules. In that case, I did want to just start off by seeing how y'all are doing and how chat is doing.
Well, I'm great. I have about 1,000,001 questions for Mark, so I'll have to refrain myself. But yeah, other than that, I'm great.
All right. Mark, we were talking a minute ago. I asked you. You said you were at work again today. I trust everything's going smoothly.
Oh yeah, I mean it was great. I had some of the guys in chat know. I was cranked up the tunes, and I was working on the master spreadsheet for the crafting system.
Great. We've got lots of new people in chat that aren't usually here, so if I can, I'll take 1 minute just to introduce you to how we normally run the show. I'll let y'all know how things are going to go. Kriss and I started with the Veilcast for like 21 episodes, and then we made this Unchained Vodcast, which is now on episode 5. I had to think for a minute.
Yeah.
What we normally try to do is pick a single topic. We talk about it for 40 to 50 minutes or so. Sometimes we run a little over that. And just drill into that single topic, dissect it, take questions from chat, and just go to town on that one topic. That's what we're going to be doing today. I would ask chat to try and... You certainly send questions. We love questions. Try to keep them on what the topic we're talking about at the moment within crafting. And towards the end, we'll just call for whatever questions we have or topics we haven't covered, and you can just throw them all at us, and we'll see what we can get to. Of course, I also want to introduce Mark. He should not need any introduction for most of the people here, but in case he does for some reason, is co-founder of City State Entertainment and the lead developer of Camelot Unchained. Founder of Mythic Entertainment, responsible, of course, for Dark Ages of Camelot and Dark Age of Camelot and Warhammer Online, and now is knee-deep in the goodness that is Camelot Unchained. So,
I think it's even deeper than that at this point.
Head deep, completely under, It's not City Street Entertainment, Donnie. So, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about crafting, not specifically the crafting class, since they haven't done any reveals about the class abilities and stuff yet, but we're going to talk about the crafting system, the building system, trade, all that kind of good stuff that we got in the reveal recently. Now, I have some notes here for myself, because what I would like to do, I know you're all probably already tired of me rambling, but before we get to the questions, I would like to, since we usually spend the whole episode dissecting a system and really talking about it, I would like to very briefly summarize the reveal we got so that anybody that didn't watch it, won't be completely lost. I've got a few links here I'll give to people who may need them. Here's a summary that was made for it. Here is the document we will refer to. And if you want to go back and watch the whole live streams, here is a link to City States
The
videos
BSC
on
days.
YouTube. So,
In the BSC days.
get a drink of water before I take a deep breath. I'm going to try and do this justice very briefly. And I drank that wrong. The crafting reveal. First of all, there will be a dedicated crafter class that you will be able to play if you want to be a crafter. You do not necessarily have to PvP, though there may be advantages for doing so, so you certainly are welcome to do that. As a crafter, you will have a Vox Magus that you can upgrade, which is essentially your crafting station. You'll also have a Libro Magus, which is kind of a crafter spellbook that's upgradable. Even though there's a spell book, the crafting is not recipe based. You'll be able to take and combine different materials that have their own qualities and purity levels and everything. Combine those to make different items of varying types, with also based on your own skill level and a little bit of randomness mixed in. The crafting process includes gathering materials, purifying materials to make them better, shaping materials to create new materials, and then of course creating the items. Creating items, especially powerful items, can take a long time and can even be completed when you're not online. You can have player and non-player assistance, and of course pretty much everybody can gather materials, though crafters may be able to gather some things that other people cannot. Oh, crafters will also be dependent on caravan routes for ferrying supplies all throughout the RVR zone. Did I forget anything important?
I think you covered most of the major topics.
I feel like I need a nap now after that. So, before we get to the serious questions, I wanted to ask the two of you to start us off, starting with Mark. What is your favorite part of the crafting system?
Favorite now would probably be the alloy system that I'm working on. Favorite later, that would be tough. I think caravans are going to end up, if we have the time and the, well, basically it's the time, to do something special with them. I think we can do something really interesting with them. But right now, crafting, I'm having a lot of fun learning more about mechanical properties of materials than I could have possibly dreamed of when I thought about this. It's fun.
Actually, that's pretty much the same. That's what really sold me on the crafting system, is the no recipe, having to combine different materials, different properties to obtain new alloys. That's makes the crafting interesting, and that's what really got me excited with the CU crafting.
See, I thought Kriss would say Vox. So we've had conversations about this.
I really love the Vox, but the Vox is just an element of the crafting. The core of the crafting is the alloy system, and it's what really sets it apart from pretty much all of the crafting in games.
I would tend to agree. But speaking of the Vox, I think Kriss had... I'll let him start us off. I think he had some more serious questions that he wanted to address and talk about regarding the Vox Magus.
Yeah. The first question actually is about one of the topics during the reveal that was pretty controversial. It's the Vox power. There's a lot of people that fear that it's going to limit the crafting time for people who are highly focused on the crafting. I would like to know about the PCAs, the player crafter assistants. Since you said in the reveal and in the document that you can feed your Vox with your own power to keep crafting longer, can you use pretty much essentially PCAs as extra batteries, hiring them to use their power to keep crafting?
Probably not. The idea should be that the PCAs are there to take some of the burden off you, but not to really get around some of the limitations we are going to have with the Vox. I mean, look, the bottom line is, am I intending, or did I intend, and do I intend to use the power of the Vox to limit the number of items that a player can craft in a week? Yes. I mean, that's just the bottom line. We can have people who craft with friends using their Vox, sharing an account, anything like that, crafting items 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's just bad for the economy. I mean, that's the only reason. It's not, if we were like other games, and that's all I'll say, you could look at the Vox Power as a potential cash shop item. Absolutely. Yeah. And I've said point blank, we're not a cash shop game, won't be a cash shop game, we're a subscription game. So I get to use something like the Vox Power to be, a limiting factor on how many items a player can craft. And anybody who says they're going to play the game 24/7 is probably not telling the truth. Okay? Maybe there is somebody out there who is going to try to do it, but realistically, almost no one is going to try to play the game all the time. And so the idea is going to be to use the Vox's power in a way that players who are playing honestly won't have anything to worry about. It's not going to be an issue. But if people are trying to do things that, get around, whether you call them exploiters or you just call them clever, they're trying to get around things that we're putting in to protect the economy and to protect the players. It's not, a thing we're putting in so we can make more money. I've seen that enough in other games, and there's just no chance that that's happening here. So, it's not going to be a problem for the average player. It just won't.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad you embrace the rarity of the items. In an economy that is centered on the crafting, I think it's really important. It's gonna be, I think, a good balance between offer and demand. That means that the crafters are not the only ones that are gonna set the prices, but the clients will be also.
There you go. I mean, look, the symbiotic relationship between crafters and combatants we're trying to build, the less one-sided it can be, the better off we are. And if there is some rarity of items, and once again, no cash shop, so we can have rarer items or items that are tougher to get, it's going to require the combatants to go out and get it for the crafters. So if the crafters are getting all uppity and thinking that they can control things, the combatants can, kind of not. And then when the combatants are acting all uppity, well, then the crafters can go, okay, fine, you want to act this way, then we're going to act a certain way in response. It's
sure, perfect. I'll double my price.
Exactly. So it's perfect, because whenever you can have a system where you can have either side at times try to restrict supply, and in this case both can, then they have to learn to get along. But if it was all the crafters, if all they had to do was just go in the safe areas and get the metals, the materials, then they would really be able to control the economy. And we don't want them to do that, just as we don't want the combatants to be in a position where they can always make life horrible for the crafters. Yeah. Thus requiring sides to work together.
Yeah, you alleviated all concerns I had for it when you just said no cash shop for the juice for the Vox Magus. That was my main thing. I was like, yes, all right, I'm fine. I mean,
there's no way. There's just and this comes up in so many, whether it's whether it's interviews or podcasts, people keep bringing that up, and it's like, God, I've said it from the beginning of the Kickstarter. That that's not the game we're making, and if anything can be said about me is I am kind of honest about things, and when I make promises, I keep promises. I don't make a ton of them for that reason, because I'm a developer and things happen. People leave, companies go out of business that were paying you, that sort of thing. So when I can make a promise like when we're a subscription game and these items are not going to be cash shopped, I get to keep it. I have to keep it.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the whole concept, not the cash shop part, obviously, but about the energy system for it is it's another way that while the game is endeavoring to, of course, allow people to really commit to it hardcore and really play the hell out of the game, it's still kind of capping it at a certain point so that a lot of the other people, especially more mature players that have full-time jobs, can still play and have fun and be somewhat competitive in the game without just being completely overwhelmed by the people who don't have jobs and can just sit there for 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and grind out items. And I'm
tired of the 10,000 items crafting gimmick to level up your crafting. That's just
another dagger, another dagger, another dagger.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the worst concept ever, because it's wasted time, basically. To me, for the crafters, it's wasted time. It's trying to keep you at the crafting station where you shouldn't have to.
Exactly. And look, and that's when a lot of people have asked, like, why did you go with a crafter class instead of just having crafter bolt-on skills? It's because I knew if we do it right, that you're going to spend time in front of your Vox, but then you're going to spend time doing other things as well. And all we had to focus on with the crafter class was things related to crafting. That's it. We don't have to worry about, really the kind of leveling that, look, we've seen enough games where crafting is a bolt-on, and we know what happens, whether it isn't as good, or, you get crafters who can level up very quickly because their mains are supplying them. And it's not that it's bad, but that's what was done before, and I think we have a better way, and especially for the target audience we're going for. And that's the essence of the kind of game we're making. We're not saying, and I've never said, oh, we're going to be all old school in every way. No, because that's dumb. Because there were some old school things that just didn't work. Or they worked then because nobody knew better. Or they worked then because people hadn't come up with some better ways to do things. And, that's what we're all about. We'll look at something at the old school and go, yeah, that works. Great, fabulous. And other things that don't work. And crafting 10,000 items to level, I don't really think that works anymore.
Yeah,
I remember as a former EQ player and rogue especially, where I had to level poison making and pottery to make my vials for my poisons. I remember doing. I think in the course of the game, I made millions of pot that I never used. That was just here for leveling, and it doesn't serve any purpose.
Yeah, I've always felt that, for me personally, for my preferences, if a game is not going all out with crafting, I have no time for it. It's like a mini game for me. I mean, I just look at it for most MMOs. If it's not something that has had tons of thought and time put into it, I go, this is pointless. I'm not doing it. Yeah. To kind of try and answer Aldurn's question from earlier, I believe Mark said in the live stream, their live stream, that if you have, they haven't decided about that, but if you have multiple accounts, they'll probably have some way, like you share a Vox or something, and you can't run it on multiple characters at the same time. Not multiple accounts, but if you have multiple characters, you can't necessarily just run 5 Voxes at the same time to churn out items. That would completely defeat the whole system.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask about the Vox mages, I don't know if Kriss had other Vox questions or not.
I have one. I know you hate the word Vellic, but it's about the Vox, literally the Vox swag, because I'm one of those players that when I play a game, I like the style as much as the quality of the items. So I'm usually the type of guy who doesn't have the best gear on, but has a matching set. And for the Vox, I'm wondering, will there, because you said a lot of the updates will be realm rewards for work orders. Will some of the more cosmetic options will be able to be made by crafters, or all of the updates being upgrades or cosmetic will be as realm rewards?
So let me make sure I understood the question. Are you asking whether all cosmetics will be realm rewards, or will there be some cosmetics that can be made through the Vox?
No, for the Vox, the cosmetic for the Vox.
Oh, for the Vox.
Yeah.
So can you make your Vox?
Some of them.
Can you pimp out your Vox? Is that what
pretty
you're
much?
asking?
Not
Yes,
just by the realm, but yourself.
Yes.
Or for another crafter.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Look. This is the crafter's, pride and joy. This is what this is the equivalent of your gear, right? It is as gear is so important sometimes to some players in terms of the look. Not only obviously, its stats, but the look of the armor that and the weapon and everything else and your mount. That's important. Yeah, of course. You'll be able to upgrade your Vox cosmetically as well.
Yeah, that leads a little bit into the question I wanted to ask about the Vox. Not cosmetics, but for the Vox, when you go to upgrade the Vox, will you upgrade it holistically, upgrade the whole thing at once, or will there be separate parts on the Vox that get upgraded separately?
The current plan is to upgrade the parts separately. Okay. So that way somebody who's more focused on one area of crafting can upgrade that without us having to worry about, if we put this upgrade in, well, that's going to affect that, and that's going to affect that, and that's going to affect that, and just go, nope, if you want to, spend more time refining, you might make a choice to put some things into your Vox that make you better at refining.
Let's see, scanning chat real quick to make sure I've got all the questions related to Vox. The Draxies wanted to know if you will always need your Vox mages to craft, which I believe you've answered before.
Yeah, so just like there's popcorn crafting we've talked about for combatants, there'll be some things you won't need your Vox for, but those are the same things that the combatants can do. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to say a combatant can do stuff without a Vox, but the crafters can't do it without the Vox. But anything big, yeah, you're going to need your Vox. I mean, if you're going to do refining, if you're going to do the things that make a crafter as opposed to a combatant with some crafting abilities, you're going to need the Vox.
Okay.
One of the example would be you. Actually, I asked the question during the reveal Q&A, and you said that, for example, for the gathering, for the taking part, you won't need your Vox. For example, you could use the Libro Mages instead.
Did I think we just, or maybe I just twitched out because you just broke up with me, Kriss. Can you hear me? You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
All right. Can you ask that again because it came through really garbled?
Okay. No, I was saying that I actually asked the question during the Q&A and you answered it. That, for example, the taking part, so the gathering part, will not necessarily need the Vox mages, but might use, for example, the Libro mages for the higher level of gathering.
Yeah, I mean, for some things, obviously, we can't expect people, again, to drag their Vox around. We're talking about...
I'll make a small cart to drag it.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Now you're going to have to get that into the depths and get around.
It's magic. We can't conjure it.
Yeah. Usually in the studio, when I use that phrase, there's an F word that goes before it. It's blank magic. So no, when you are going and doing your basic gathering stuff, you won't need your Vox. Is it possible that for certain very high level crafting or crafting within, gathering within the depths, that a Vox or a portable Vox may be used? It's something we've talked about, but no, we're not trying to be silly with it. You should be able to go out and mine and gather without having to play the Phantom of the Opera on your Vox.
Oldovic had a question. You've said before that crafting can critically fail and cause issues. He wants to know if your Vox can break or explode in such a instance.
Realistically, the answer is no. I mean, the explode part. That would be bad. That is something that your crafter has spent everything on. Now, can you damage the Vox? Absolutely. No different than the combatant who's going out in armor and with weapons. Stuff happens. You know, is it going to happen when you're doing a basic operation? No, of course not. You know, but if you're trying something very powerful, very dangerous, you're maybe linked up with other crafters, could something go wrong? Absolutely. But blowing up a guy's Vox and making the crafter start from, you know, the beginning, that would be awful. That would be one of those just really painful kind of penalties that we're not trying to do. You know, let other games go for that sort of thing. That's just, you know, no.
Yeah.
On the other hand, not when you damage the Vox or for a high-level crafting, I've never actually played the AOC, but I heard a lot about the Crafter Explosion, and I've had that experience in the Saga of Rhizome, where when you were gathering, if you were gathering a node too aggressively, it would explode in your face, and even for the higher nodes, kill you, literally. Is that something that might happen?
Well, you know, there is that nasty place called the depths. Look, when you're just, you know, mining or you're gathering, is anything like that going to happen? No. If you're in the depths, possibly, yeah, it's a dangerous place. It's meant to be a dangerous place.
Yeah.
If you go in there, you know you're going into a very dangerous place. Risk reward. I mean, it should be that way. It shouldn't be, hey, the combatants just took the depths, and now the crafters can go in, yay, it's all for us, all free, no effort. You know, you're going to have to work in that place too. And again, it helps build, as we talked about earlier, it helps build a mutual dependency on people. You know, if the combatants have to fight and have to take risks and do the things that they're going to need to do to take control of it, well, then if the crafters just go in and it's, you know, all for them, that's going to breed a bit of, you know, tension between them. Yeah. But if the crafters have their own issues in there and their own skills to get the most out of it, whole different story. I hope that will reinforce the bonds between players.
Speaking of gathering, I did want to talk about the crafting process itself, which we've kind of gone into a little bit. I mean, we've got gathering, refining, shaping, and item creation. I had a question kind of about gathering for both of you. In your opinion, it was mentioned before that some of the rare mats might only be gatherable by crafters. So in your opinion, will that encourage many players to create crafter alts for gathering?
I think not. I think far less than you might expect. I mean, you know, a crafter alt, in order to gather the high-level materials, is going to have to be a high-level crafter. It's not going to be, hey, I can create a crafter alt and go out and get the best stuff right away, because that would be stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be like really dumb. So without, you know, will people have encouragement to create a crafter alt? Look, no matter how we do it, people are going to say that, yes, we're encouraging people. You know, whether it's a bolt-on to combatants and then limit the number of skills the crafter, or limit the number of skills the combatant would get from the crafter system, or we do like we're doing it now as a separate class, there'll always be some people, well, you're encouraging alts. Well, first of all, I don't have any problem with that. I have tons of alts. I love alts.
I'm an altaholic, so
I'm not,
I'm an altaholic, so
yeah, me too. So I have no problem with that. But in this case, it's not geared to creating alts, lots of alts, because you pointed it out earlier. You can't have 5 crafters and 5 boxes and all doing their thing at the same time. Because if we did that, then you might be able to make an argument that I'm encouraging people to have 5 or 6 crafter alts.
Yeah. The reason I asked, because my first thought seeing it was, I'm probably going to want to have a crafter alt so I can try and level it. But of course, for me, it comes down to playtime. I may not have the time to level a crafter sufficiently for that. Now, one thing I did want to ask you about crafting is there are a lot of different things to craft so far. I mean, we've got different types of armor, different types of weapons, arrows, healer rocks, healer potions, flasks, arrows, spell books, instruments. A lot of people have been posting about, you know, whether or not how much their characters will be able to specialize in different areas as a crafter. My question is more, how many different things can you fit in one crafter class? Are you concerned about having too many different things to craft?
Having too many things to craft?
Yeah, I mean, how many can you fit, I guess?
Worried about that. No. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but I don't see any reason why too many things that can be crafted is a bad thing.
I mean more from development time standpoint, I guess. Having time to put all these different things in there for the crafter to make.
Oh, no. I mean, if you look at, you know, time sinks for the studio, something like quests and PvE kind of would outnumber, you know, outburden the studio far more than having a whole bunch of different armor and sword, you know, sets. And the other thing is, as we've, you know, also said from the beginning, we're not going to have tons of racial and realm and class and, you know, moon-aligned armor and weapon sets. We're just not doing that sort of stuff. So no, I'm really not worried about it. If we were trying to do one of those systems, okay, yeah, then I'd be very worried, but we're not.
I was going to ask this later, but since it actually works very well with your response to that, and James just brought it up in chat, some people were posting issues where they were having concerns with backing the game because they felt like in Warhammer a lot of things were promised for crafting that weren't quite delivered. And with the game having, I guess, a small team, with Camelot Unchained having a small team and a relatively smaller budget, what would you say to them to encourage them that this awesome crafting system is doable? That it's...
Well, look, that argument has come up, or that concern has come up since the day even before the Kickstarter started. You know, you see it on some forums. Oh, MJ said this, so therefore this game is going to fail because MJ said that Warhammer was going to have great crafting. Yeah, and forget the 30 years of making other games and Dark Age of Camelot and Aliens Online and everything great that was in Warhammer. Yeah, forget all that. No, Mark talked about crafting, and then crafting system didn't come out this way. Doom, doom, doom. Now look, so the bottom line is, did the crafting system in Warhammer end up the way it should have? No, absolutely not. It was a combination of things that went wrong, and I refuse to throw anyone under the bus, because the guy who did most of the legwork on the crafting system is the last one who deserves to be thrown under the bus, because frankly it wasn't his fault. None. And I'm not referring to me in the, you know, sort of weird way people might talk about themselves. So I would not throw any, especially him, under the bus in any way. It just didn't end up the way I would wanted this system to end up, and you know, this time it will. I have no doubt. It's why I'm doing it now. It's why, you know, I have spent so much time in research and spreadsheet land. And, you know, if people are concerned, honestly, that, you know, because I said so many things, and the one thing I will say always, when people say, I promised a certain thing, yeah, not so much. Not when it comes to crafting or anything else, generally, when it comes to scope. Because scope can change, and sometimes it really sucks when it has to. Crafting wasn't affected by scope. It was affected by other things. So in this case, you know, look, you like the presentations. I'm doing the math now, and all I have to say is that this time, no doubt about it, this time if this system fails, it's on me.
Yeah, if I can, I think, to me, the difference seems to be between this and lots of other games is also a matter of focus. I mean, it's been said a million times, Camelot Unchained isn't trying to crank out PvE content. It's not trying to crank out tons of racial armor and things that are different. And from the very beginning, y'all have said, you know, PvP and crafting, it's like two pillars. They're just sitting right next to each other. These are the things we're doing. And all this other stuff's extra and awesome. Some of it will not get done. Gonna try, but I think that's definitely makes a big difference, and that made a big difference for me when deciding to back the game. I mean, when I came in there and started looking at everything and went, it's very simple. You're doing this, you're doing this. Yeah. There's a lot of other things you're doing, but, you know, they're not necessarily guarantees.
Around those two pillars.
Yeah, it's a very focused development process, I guess.
The pillars of gameplay, and this is one of them. And it's really important. It's something that can't be bolted on. It's something that can't be done at the last minute. The beauty of the system, and Andrew and I were discussing it yesterday, as a matter of fact, the beauty of the system is that it's really math heavy and asset light. And that's really good, right? Because
in terms of development time, it sounds very effective, yeah.
Exactly. That's 100% correct, Chris. If you've got a system, if you've got a game like ours, you know, small team, though we're bigger, obviously, than we were last year, which is wonderful. You know, 2 new senior programmers and, you know, 2 new artists to add to the team, and it's been additive. It's lovely. You know, if you look at a team like ours, and if I was sitting here going, oh my God, we're going to have so much breadth in the system. It's going to go out to here, and then it's going to go this deep. And we're going to be crafting such unique looking pieces of armor and unique weapons. Frankly, I would expect people to call me up if they could find my number and ask for a refund, because I've obviously lost my mind. You know, just, you know, get the wagon and get me to the old game developer's home. And we're not doing that. We're doing the opposite. And that's the clever bit. And that's the clever bit that, you know, I wanted to do before even the Kickstarter began, which is, you know, by allowing people to customize their weapons, their armor, more internally than externally focused, that gives our players, the RVR-focused, you know, tri-realm, PvP, whatever term you want to use, backers who are here to either build stuff or burn stuff, and sometimes in between. And they're not here for PvE, and they're not here just for who can have the shoulder pads that go out to here and to here and have swords, you know, the size of Mack trucks. This is what they care about. This is what you guys care about. This is what I care about. You know, I want a weapon made the way I want it, to reflect the kind of, you know, to reflect my play style, to reflect, you know, the kind of thing I want to carry around. I want my armor to do certain things. That's what is most important to us, I think. I mean, I hope so, because I'm banking, you know, a lot of my money and a lot of the team's time and my time on the, I hope not mistaken belief that there's an awful lot of RVRers who care far more about being clever with how they play a game, how they design and get their equipment made, than, again, having shoulder pads out to here.
Yeah, and I love that it's going to be very customized work, which is, it transitions in other subject, but I love that it encourages people to actually ask for custom works from different crafters who are most specialized in what they need, because 2 blackguards will not need the same, the Black Knight, sorry, will not need the same armor depending on their playstyle. So that's something, and that's something that excites me in terms of economy and market, because it prevents mass production even for the big guilds. And we are trying to be a relatively big guild in terms of numbers and power, but at the same time, I like that there's competition, because we're not going to be able to craft everything. And that comes into my next question, actually, which is, you did say that crafters will not be jack of all trade and master everything. it's how deep we can go without foregoing the whole system. For example, sword maker. Will a sword maker have to forego making master hammers or two-handed swords to be a grandmaster, to make a grandmaster one-handed sword? Is the specialization going to go that deep?
No, I mean right now, and obviously this is something that could change, but I don't see it changing. The idea isn't that we want you to master one weapon and say that's it. You can only master one. There can't be any other. That would probably end badly. Now, can you master every type of weapon and every technique and every? No, you can't. You won't be able to do that. And that's look, that's what beta is about, right? And figuring out just how far we can go with combatants and crafters before we say, okay, you know, here's where you hit a soft cap. Here's where, and in some cases it might even be a hard cap, though I don't like, you know, hard caps. And go, you can't, you know, really learn anything more as a crafter. So, you know, it is not our intent, and, you know, I can guarantee this, to do it that way, because that would be a cheat. You know, we've told crafters and we've told combatants that they can have lots of different abilities. And, you know, we've said there isn't going to be a profession lock as a crafter where, nope, if you've got to be, you know, you want to be a sword guy, or maybe, oh, we'll move it up a level, so now you can only be an edged weapon guy. Oh, or even go up higher, so you can only be a weapon guy. No, we haven't said anything like that. And so putting that kind of limit on a crafter that they could only master one thing, that's just disguising. That's obfuscation. You know, that's disguising a very limited system.
And it's also, for me, the worry behind that question is that eventually in the life of the game, it might come a time where you're short on crafter population. And people, if we specialize too much, that means there's a lack, for example, of hammer makers for the people using the hammer and things like that. So yeah, I like the idea that we don't have to specializing. Yes, I love that. That not everybody can do everything. It's one of the things that annoys me the most in a lot of the games because you don't play an MMO to be self-sufficient, but having to specialize so much that you can only do one thing, I think it's detrimental to the whole population of the server and of the game.
Let me interrupt for just 1 second. So I want to say hi to somebody, and I want everyone in chat to say hi as well. So I'm talking right now. I got a text from my sister. So I want to say, hey, Karen. And for all you people in chat, you guys really should say hi to her, because not only is Karen my sister, but she was also one of the investors in Mythic Entertainment and was responsible for funding Dark Age of Camelot.
Oh, then
hello.
Thank you. Hello and thank you.
So right now, Karen, hopefully you're reading Twitch chat, but everyone is saying hi to you. Love you. Talk to you soon.
Feel the emanation of love.
Karen's awesome. She's also one of the founders of Abandon Entertainment. She's made a lot of movies and a TV show. Nice. One of her latest projects was the Stanford prison experiment, which was really scary things that happened in the past, and a really, really good film.
Okay.
Karen
I heard about that experiment.
Yeah, Karen says, hi, everyone.
I just cleaned out chat pretty well.
Yeah.
All the questions gone. There was one question I wanted to address, if I can, before we move on to another topic. It's not really entirely related, but I think it was... I don't have his name anymore. But he asked about the parallels between Camelot Unchained and EVE Online, and I wanted to mention what I saw as them for him real quick. Because you've said before that you know the game ideas evolve from lots of different games that have all done a lot of some of the same ideas over and over again. And I'm assuming he was saying he's an EVE player. So for him, I would say the ones I see most imminently our crafting process. We've got that entire development process where you refine materials to create new materials and create new items and everything. Eve has something similar to that. You have dispersed material gathering, where you have to go out into dangerous areas and put yourself at risk a little bit to get some of those materials, or get someone else to go get them for you. There's contract systems to pay people to go do things for you via the bounty system. And there is I forgot what I wrote down now.
The caravans system also.
I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, dispersed markets. Of course, there are going to be markets spread all over the place to sell goods, which is something similar in that too. Hakugard, there he is. I see him now. I played Eve for quite a while myself too. I really enjoyed that game, so I'm not. That's certainly not my least favorite aspects of the crafting process. Speaking of the crafting process itself, one thing I wanted to ask you was about refinement, which is probably, it sounds like, all of our favorite part of it right now. Can you refine building materials? For instance, can you refine like granite to make a stronger wall when you build keeps with it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the ability to change a material is something that has to work across the board. It has to work for leather, right? It has to work for bone. It has to work, you know, for metals. It has to work for crystal. It has to work for stone. So yeah, you'll be able to do stuff to the stone to make it stronger stone. It's one of the choices people are going to have to make in spending their money, you know, as well. You know, where do you want to spend it on reinforcing your home?
Oh, the strongest walls. Nothing but the best. No expense.
Nothing but the best.
Ah, crap.
No expense.
I failed with my quote.
Actually, that brings me back to a question that was on the chat also, which is, will the Vox be involved in the building construction? In making the buildings basically in cube, or will it be separated?
Honestly, that's something we've talked about. We don't have a decision on it yet. I have to be careful with that, because if we take the Vox out of production of items, that could be bad for the economy. Like if you have to use your Vox to build someone's house, that means you can't be using your Vox for crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that might drain the resources a bit too much.
Exactly. And, you know, that's the thing. We have to be careful on both sides. We have to make sure that what we're doing to limit supply doesn't end up limiting supply so much that we have a hell of a lot of pissed off combatants going, I can't get anything.
I need my breastplate.
So,
on a similar question, Adraxes was asking, roughly how long is it going to take to build buildings? Because that would definitely, as you said, take time out of production. If it's going to take, some of us are assuming it's going to take days or maybe even weeks to build buildings. Other people assuming less periods of time.
Good assumption.
All right, I like that answer.
Depends on the size, probably.
Exactly. It has to take time. Yeah. You know, it's just like repairing, right? If people can repair things like that and repair things in combat, then sieges, you know, there's no such thing as a siege perilous. It's just a siege boredom. Because, you know, you just have the crafters there going, hey, look, fix. So, yeah, stuff is going to take time to build. Small things won't take as much time. Big things will take more time. But the good news with that is, then you also it's not going to be easy to knock things down, you know, because we all remember the 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever time people could get up, relic raids, right? Okay. Yeah. So if it was easy for a group of people, even a small group, even a reasonably large group of people, to go in and immediately knock down somebody's castle that took weeks to build, once again, that would be terribly stupid. So it's not going to be easy. If it's not easy to build, it can't be easy to destroy. And if you put more time and more energy and more money into protecting your keep, well, it's going to be even stronger and even harder to knock down.
Absolutely,
I'd
my favorite
like to go
answer.
back just a bit on the different skills, and in the crafting document, the presentation, you said that the taking part, so the gathering part, is the one that allows the most automation, but at the same time, you were aiming for more interaction than in most other games. Isn't that a bit contradictory?
Say that again?
That for the taking, for the gathering. You said that in the crafting document, you said that it's the side of the crafting that allows the most automation, but at the same time, you noted that you want more interaction than in most other games. Isn't that a bit contradictory?
No, because some things can require more interaction and other things don't. Do you really want to spend... so you're a crafter, and you really love crafting. Do you think that after playing the game for a couple months, you're going to really enjoy going...
No, definitely not.
There you go.
So it's more a question of evolution, and the higher you get, the more automation you get. Okay.
Exactly. It's the same... Look, it's the same with combatants. If all we had was some basic spells, basic abilities, and that's all those guys could do, after a bit of time, and maybe not a big bit, maybe a little bit, they would get bored, right? So why should we put why should crafters be treated any differently? There's stuff that once you've learned how to master it, once you have assistance, I don't want my crafters spending time going, tink, 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 all day. That's just boring after a while. And even if it isn't boring, and some people do enjoy it, and then there's nothing wrong with that, then it's still taking them away from doing what they really should be doing. The more important things. As you become a more powerful character, you're not using all the same abilities that you used in combat. So why should it be for crafters?
Now, I have a question for you, Kriss, if I can. I have a question for you. Give Mark a break for a minute. This is something they had mentioned previously and kind of said they can't talk about, which is why I have a question for you. That is, they kind of mentioned the potential for something like guild keeps. And it's a stage where they can't really talk about it. So what I wanted to ask you is, we've got the man here right now. So what would you and what would chat say? Are the main things you would be looking for that? I mean, I'm sure he's read most of our comments anyway already, but we're gonna beat the dead bush.
Well, I actually, for my achievement and my wish for our guild is more of a guild city than just a guild keep or a guild hall.
He wants the whole map. He's just like, no, I'm building on the whole map.
Just a map. not a map. Just a city as big as the starting city, basically. I want guilds to have possibility. For example, it was actually a discussion on the CEO forums yesterday or the day before. Guild keeps shouldn't have to be just castles. It could be, for example, since we talked about the caravans, it could be a caravan relay that allows smaller guilds that don't have the resource and the time and the crafters to make big castles, to still have an impact on the realm and contribute in keeping the caravans safe.
That would be kind of cool.
So I think guilds should have a choice, depending on their size and their capability, to have a guild hall that matches their needs and their desires.
Yeah, for me it's pretty simple. Mine's gonna be pretty to the point, that I don't think it really is gonna be surprising, considering they're pretty much in the foundational principles anyway. Pride. I can just sum it up with that. I want to see the guild name on it. I want to see all the banners and all that kind of crazy stuff. And what goes along with that, I think, is challenge. Kind of the opposite of what you just said. When it comes to the actual keeps and stuff, I want to see those be really hard for people to get. I don't want it to be something, oh, everybody's got a keep. There's a keep here, there's a keep there. I want people to walk out there and go, oh man, they've got a keep. That's cool.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. A small guild having an inn can be just a step. A guild keep, a guild castle, something that is regularly attacked, that becomes a landmark in the RVR, that is regularly sieged. That should be hard. First, that's going to take an insane amount of time to build, and of resources. So that's going to be an achievement in and of itself. It's probably not something that's going to be easy, but at the same time, making not a basic but kind of reinforced inn can still be an achievement compared to your capability. 5, 10, 15 members, casual members, guild that don't have 5 or half their roster as crafters will consider it an achievement to have their own inn. So the achievement and the difficulty is not absolute. It depends on the capability of it. So even a small keep can be a challenge to get, and can be hard to get for a guild.
Donnie just wants a keep with doors that only Lutrapans can get inside of.
You can do that.
I'll get Kriss to bring his catapults. That's what we're going to do. We will make the doors bigger. I did have...
He wants huge towers also, probably.
I did have a two-part question, kind of going into shops and selling items and everything. Kind of a two-part question. First is, you said before that players will kind of have to earn the right through realm contribution to put up shops and things like that. What I wanted to know is, are the places, and I suspect I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway to lead up to my next question. Are the places for shops out, not in the safe zones, but out in the RVR area, are they going to be predefined, or will they be defined by people who create the keeps and other buildings?
You're right. You knew the answer to that.
All right. Well, then leading into my second question is, who earns the right to have the shop? If the person builds the keep, do they have to earn the realm rewards to go, there's going to be a shop there? Or what if someone else wants to run the shop? Do they have to earn the realm kudos to operate a shop there? Or is it kind of a combination of both of them?
Well, so if you look at it from the difference between the safe cities and the non-safe cities, the non-safe cities are everything else except the safe city. There's going to be less restrictions there. It's the frontier, right?
Yeah.
Inside the safe cities, there is will be more regulation. So my guess is, because honestly I haven't gone any deeper than that, that within the realm of your safe city, yeah, that's something you're going to have to earn, and you're going to have to maintain. Not in an obsessive, ridiculous way that you leave for a month and you lose everything, because that also would be bad. But just the idea that you will still have to either go on vacation mode, like in my old campaign game Galaxy, or do other things to ensure that we don't forget you. We meaning obviously city-state and your realm. Out in the frontier areas, it's going to be different. You're going to have much more freedom. You need to.
Thank you. I do have another two-part question about markets and sales and all this stuff, because it is, I appreciate, a very complicated issue. Since there is no auction house, do you think it's going to be necessary, this is kind of, I guess, a question for both of you, but do you think it's going to be necessary for players to utilize one or even multiple trade chats in order to sell their products, in order to tell people where they're at? And
well, you're assuming there'll be a trade chat.
Yeah, that's the assumption, the question, because some people are pro trade chat, some people are very anti trade chat.
The trouble with trade chat, as we know, is that it quickly devolves into
Spam
chaos and spam. And if you allow trade chat on the main chat channels, then people are complaining about that as well. So the idea that there'll be trade chat is still under discussion. There needs to be a way of communicating what's for sale from sellers, from sellers to buyers in a better way. What is it? We'll find out, honestly. I mean, no, and I'm not trying to be, I'm trying to dodge the question. I know I've seen enough games where these systems don't work. I haven't seen one that I love yet. Obviously, we've used different systems in different games. Yeah, it is. It's a pain in the ass. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So I'm less worried about it within the safe city, because I know there's lots of ways to communicate. Out in the other areas, it's going to be a little more challenging.
One follow-up question to that.
It's just to answer a part of that also, in my opinion, it's going to be partly the seller's job to actually find his market.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it also allows, it doesn't need a lot of game mechanics, but it allows actual traders, somebody who's willing to take the time to go check the prices for a certain item between the sellers, and then have buyer's client and take a cut on the selling price to make money.
Yeah, and I think
that's also another system.
I think a part of the game's design itself really kind of helps with this, because like Kriss was saying earlier, you can't really everyone is going to, depending on their play style and their choice, is going to need something separate. So especially when you get to higher tier gear, to a certain point, I think it's going to be more people putting in like purchase orders and going, this is what I want, someone make it for me, than it's going to be, oh, I just produce these things and put it in my shop, come buy it. I think that's probably going to be for more ammunition and probably other types of lower tier stuff. But another question that this isn't really a question.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. Just say the whole purchase order thing was something I wanted for Warhammer that we will have in this game, because I think there are ways. If we make it easier for the players, for combatants, to get what they need from crafters without doing it in a really silly way, then some of the problems go away, because the majority of your players, especially the veterans, already know, or know by then, who they're going to work with, where to find the people to work with, and will be smart enough to put in purchase orders or do other things that won't require an auction house, that won't require, running around that area all the time trying to find somebody to do something. And then we need the opposite system for the crafters, so they can make sure that they're getting their message out. So we'll experiment with some different things, but it's going to be interesting, because it just doesn't work in most games. It doesn't work well.
That was good. That actually removed the need for my follow-up question.
Oh, good.
But I did have a different question. This is kind of breaking into more random questions now, I guess. But this is a question that has personally been just boiling in my head, so I have to ask it to get it out of there. Where does the money for the economy come from? Does it only come from the daily realm rewards, or does it come from other possible sources? How do people get the cash in the first place to even start buying these things?
Well, obviously people have to start with some money, because that would be even harder. And yes, the majority of it is going to come from your king. I didn't say all of it, the majority. So,
speaking of the king, I have also a more random, well, not too random question. It's about the work orders for the crafters. You noted in the document that the work orders are going to be soul-bound. Does it mean that the crafter will have to take care of the whole process, or can he buy the different levels of process? And can somebody who's lazy, let's say it how it is, who's lazy, can buy the finished product and just turn them in to have his work order fulfilled? How is somebody who's rich enough to actually do that? Because it's going to cost probably more than you get in terms of money from the realm to fulfill that order. But somebody who's rich enough and lazy enough to just buy the finished order, can he turn them in and get the rewards without having put up the work first?
No.
Okay, good.
Kriss is already trying to break the game before the thing's even happened.
No, I'm actually trying to find ways to prevent the
being
game broken. Because I hate that idea of somebody lazy enough but rich enough to buy the finished project, just take it and turn it in and get the reward.
They have the high-level fighter.
Actually...
They roll a crafter and just start buying mass quantities of things to turn in for the realm missions.
And get a shop that easy. I like the idea to actually put up the work to get the reward. Otherwise, there's no point in it.
Yeah.
So just to give you a heads up, I've got 20 minutes before I have to scoot.
All right, okay. Kriss, I was just about to say I'm almost out of questions. So, chat, if y'all have questions, and Kriss, do you have any other things you really were burning?
Have one last that is actually, it's a two-part question because it popped up in the same topic. Mark probably read it. It's called Surviving the Progress Bar, and it's a very hot topic, very discussed about the mini games. And so if you read the topic, you know that I'm pretty passionately against the mini games because I consider that the crafting system that we have has enough depth and complexity to keep people interested and don't need gimmicks to make it worth it. The thing is,
I like mini games
because you did put that there will be some possibility of mini games. What is your definition of a mini game, Mark? Basically.
Sure. To me, the definition of a mini game is using something that is game-like to allow the player to make changes to either the materials that they were using or to the item itself. So, if you study the mechanical properties of materials, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens when alloys are made or things are refined. Could I see a mini game that would allow you to essentially replace the turning of dials with actual decision making? Yes, I would consider that for this game. Now, do I think it should be something else where it's, oh yeah, you just have to keep going like this 20 times in a whack-a-mole because I can't figure out something better to occupy you? No, that's a waste of time. But if I can tie something that's game-like into what you are trying to accomplish at that stage of crafting, I have no problem with it. Especially understand, and what's really important to understand, Kriss, is that you won't be sitting there playing an hour-long minigame. It would be the idea that, so you use it to set something up. Once it's set up, then you let the Vox finish it off. Essentially, you've taught the Vox using a game-like mechanic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's what I like. I'm not against mini games, just the word of it, but the idea of something that's to me unrelated to the game, making something that actually ties into the game. I'm fine with that. Completely.
Yeah, that's been part of my research too. And one of the things also to understand that the same principle applies to it that applies to gathering. So that, you know, once you've taught the Vox, again, the Libra, once you've done what you need, you don't have to do that same thing again. Like, yeah, I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now. So let's say I was teaching my Vox to make hardened steel. And I was doing some stuff in order to arrange things properly to make hardened steel. Once the Libra knows how to make it, and once you've mastered that technique, you won't have to do it for that combination again. Because, once again, that's kind of silly. Okay, I've done this 1,000 damn times.
I have to do it all over again. Yeah.
Exactly. But once you've mastered it, you can go, okay, it knows how, oh, you're not changing anything here, so it's going to be 97% iron, 2% carbon, and you're throwing 1% chromium in it just because I've got 4 different elements on this spreadsheet, and I just play with the numbers and make sure it comes out. Yeah. Once you've done that, and your Vox knows how to make it as well as it can, you can just go, okay, off you go.
Now, I wasn't.
If that system, I'm happy with it.
I wasn't going to ask Grumman's question because I felt like it was already answered in previous casts and stuff. However, they started arguing about it, so I guess I'm going to ask it anyway. Can people in the RVR zone build anywhere, or will there be pre-designed like pads for areas or designated areas where they can build?
So in terms of building, you have to look at a number of factors. First, when you say RVR zone, right? Who controls it at that point? Is it free land? Is it controlled by your realm? Is it controlled by another realm? Will you be, once you have turned a plot, once you've turned an area over to your, or have gained control of an area, whether you build on a specific pad within that area, or whether it could be totally free building, we're hoping for free building within limits. So, you know, one of the things that we said, I think I said this even during the BSC days, in laying out a map, you obviously can't have it laid out in a manner so that the plots are so close to each other that people can essentially build next to each other and block egress for everybody else just because they feel like it, right? So, you know, there has to be some limitations. Also, we may find, and I hope this isn't the case, we just haven't gone that far yet, that with the procedurally generated terrain system, there'll be some areas that are just not going to be good for building your, you know, foundation on. So there may be, you know, no, you really can't build there. But having a pad like we have now in Alpha, that's, you know, the last thing we want to have. Well, I wouldn't say it's the last. It's one of the last things we would like to resort to. Hopefully we will not need to resort to that.
All right. Well, thank you. That was much more detailed response than I expected on that.
Which is good.
Y'all can. We were probably looking at the last one or two questions, so get a good one in chat.
Actually have one last, because this one, it was part of the same thread. It's about wikis and guides and recipes, which should even not be a word used there, popping on the internet, giving you all the best or all the combinations, basically. I don't know how to prevent that. And
oh, I do.
Orange, yeah, good.
I do, but it would destroy the purpose of the game, of the crafting system. You know, this is a problem that I've considered for years, decades at this point. You know, what can you do so that people who make wikis and tell you take 97%, you know, raw iron, 2% carbon, 1% chromium, and you get this. Yeah, there's no way to stop it. You know, unless you change the system that, oh, iron is actually called, you know, Krissin for you, and, you know, for Vellic it's called Vellium, and that just gets silly. Just gets silly.
Especially for some people with silly names.
Yeah, so information's going to get out there. There's nothing we can do about it. We've always been, you know, since the beginning of the Kickstarter, a kind of information overload company. You know, who else, you know, puts their, you know, UI on the internet, essentially, puts source code up right away. So, yeah, you know, I'm not going to try any tricks. I'm not going to try to, you know, prevent people from doing that. I can, but it just would be silly and foolish and dumb. And
it's just that, in my opinion, it ruins one part, which is one interesting part of the crafting, which is the blueprint system, for example, and the market for them, selling them and making them, and selling information, because that's something that would be, if you don't have the wiki, could be a huge part of the market between crafters, because that would have no interest for the fighters and for the combatants, but among crafters, selling combinations, selling knowledge, basically, blueprints would be a huge market and a good way to pass information around while still making money.
And that's where blueprints can come in and allow people to do things. So let's take the example of my hardened iron, you know, material. So, you know, Vellic has been crafting for 6 months. He's got this down pat. Kriss, you come in for the first day. You can potentially buy a blueprint from him that would allow you to craft higher, you know, if we want to do that. So there would still be that kind of market for, okay, you know, by following this, you know, following this formula or following these settings, you will get, or by plugging the blueprint in to your Vox, you will have an advantage in crafting. So if we wanted to do that, we could ensure that crafters who, you know, have mastered stuff can make some additional coin by selling it to other crafters.
Okay.
Okay, I want to add this last question from chat. I'm hoping it makes more sense to one of you than it does to me, because I assume, due to how long things take to produce, this isn't really a problem. But Sacrix was asking, time-gated crafting. You know, after a few months, a guild's being given full mats. What happens then if the crafters have all their mats waiting around just for their power to regenerate? I guess for their Vox, I'm assuming.
Say that again?
I'm assuming he's asking if people have all their mats stocked up,
basically
then their
the
Vox
same
power
as the
regenerates, and then they start pushing out items. But
to me, it sounds like mudflation, basically. And I think, I don't want to put words in Mark's mouth, but I think embracing the rarity of items also mean embracing the rarity of materials, which means you won't be able huge amount of materials, because it would mean you would spend your time gathering and then you can't make things because you've spent your time gathering, so you don't have time to do everything.
You won't, in a perfect world, it would be like combatants. Combatants don't have time to do everything either. You know, assuming that you're talking about an average player who only has an average amount of time, whatever it is, to play the game. There are some things that you won't be able to get done that you might like to get done, because that's just how it goes. You know, you only had 2 hours to play tonight, so you weren't able to run all the way over to the other realm and be involved in a siege. And you also weren't able to run into the depths, and you also weren't able to be able to, you know, go burn down somebody's house. You had to make choices. And it'll be the same with crafters. Sometimes they're going to have to make choices as well. That's only fair.
yeah, Sacrix is talking about, you know, having a full guild, gathering items and feeding it to 3 or 4 crafters, but those crafters still can't produce things any faster. I
Exactly.
mean, the Vox still has to have a timed period to produce things.
Yep.
So.
Which is why I'm not counting on rarity of materials to be the gating factor. I expect that no matter what we do, there'll always be more material. Ben and I were actually discussing this, I think, on either Friday or Thursday. No matter what we do, unless we were just total, we'll just say jerks, we can't make a system so strict that we can ensure that there'll never be a surplus of materials. We just can't. I mean, we can, but it would be a horrible system. So I know that one way or the other, there will all eventually be more materials that I would like to see sitting around able to be used by crafters. Therefore, what you have to do, and the easiest thing to do, and the safest thing to do, and the easiest thing then to rebalance, is the power of the Vox. Because it doesn't matter. I don't care if your guild has 10,000 ingots ready to go. Your Vox can still only do so much at one time. And it can only do so much during the day. So, you know, it doesn't provide an incentive for guilds to go out and just gather like crazy. And the problem with that is, and some guilds might go, but we're good at that. Yeah, that's great, until you're not. And then when you're not good at it, a lot of people and guilds will go, well, we can't compete anymore because, you know, this guild, this group, the goons came in. And, you know, now we can't, now we have no chance because these guys are just outproducing us. Well, this is one way that helps. Doesn't guarantee, but it helps in making that a less likely scenario.
And Sacrix, the alts thing has already been answered a couple times, actually. But that was all the questions we've really got. Before we close things out, Mark, did you have any thing you wanted to leave off on or add comments while we've got everybody here?
I'm just looking at some of the questions, or just scrolling up a little bit, since I've got 5 more minutes before I have to head out. Sacrix, yes, you will not. If you have a guild that has 30 people, could you have 30 crafter alts? Of course you can. Can one guy have 5 crafter alts and another guy have 5 crafter alts? Again, yes, but you won't be able to use your Vox. The Vox will not be able to be used in a way to allow players to have so many crafters that they break the system. That's just, again, that would be silly. Let's see. To Super Dork, power renewal techniques for the Vox be mostly focused around RVR. No, but I think it's a fairly safe bet to say that if you do some good things in RVR, then there may be things that the realm will share with you to help you out a little bit. Nothing bad, nothing unbalancing, but certainly something that could give a little extra to the crafter, not to make him more powerful, not to make the weapon better, but just allow them to craft a little bit faster. That is certainly a possible reward for the realm. That's one of the challenges for me, is to come up, or just not me, for us, to come up with ways to reward crafters who participate in RVR. Let's see.
I think someone asked if we were going to have banks to store things in. I'm assuming they mean like guild banks.
Yes. Banks, vaults, absolutely confirmed. We're not using that as, again, not only a cash shop, but something to make the player's life difficult, because that would be silly. Why are we worrying about such things? Will the vault be unlimited? Probably not. Will it be limited like most? No, that's kind of silly.
Will it be pillegeable?
Yes.
Taken and pillegeable.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
If you're storing all your stuff out in the frontier, oh well. Okay.
Too bad for you.
That's what the safe city's for, and that's what other things are for. And if you decide to move everything out, that's, sometimes bad things happen. And again, and I'll finish off on the storage thing. Okay, there's one other one, even though it's not about crafting, because it's something that I have avoided doing. Not answering the question, just not doing what he's asked me. Because it does seem silly when it comes to storage that you have this giant house, then a castle, but you can only find a space in it for 10 items or 20 items. That's just silly. So, no, you'll have big things. The last question from or a name like any other name that will make me stumble. Ignadraxis, will there be new pledge tiers?
LG Nadraxis, actually.
Yeah, LG. Oh, there it goes, LG. Even better. Will there be new pledge tiers, especially for the builders? Yes, there will be. I've resisted doing it until we got into beta, until the class reveals were done. You guys who are in chat, or you people who are going to listen to this video, know me. I've tried very, very, very hard and have avoided a lot of ways to try to over-monetize our players. I don't like thinking of backers. I don't like thinking of you that way. And I thought it would be disingenuous of the studio to be putting up new tiers and other things until we got further along. It's really that simple. And so, yes, there will be. And once we prove to our backers that we are in beta and the engine's working great, and now you can see our plans for crafters. For crafting. You've now seen 30 reveals for classes. I have no problem then putting up some other tiers for folks, because now you can look at everything we're doing and go, yeah, I would like to back this game, or I'd like to change my tier. That's fair. I think doing it in between, I just didn't think that would be right. So, okay, I'm done. You asked me if there was anything else to add, and I'll do the usual. Guys, thanks for having me on the podcast. This won't be the last time. You asked some great questions. I was very pleased with this, our first podcast together. Great job. Pat yourselves on the back. To the folks in chat, you had some great questions as well. Thanks as always for being so well behaved. And to everyone who's going to hear this now in chat or on Twitch or later on YouTube, we thank you for your support. It's going to be a really interesting winter. We are pushing hard. We're going to go into crunch if necessary, to try to get this out in time for beta. I mean, you've seen the progress. Yeah. We have more progress coming. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll have something very long-awaited to show you guys this week. Awesome. We got it going late at night on Friday, but we need to do some more work on it. Thanks to the ever-popular and wonderful JB, as well as Rob's help, and the team is putting in a tremendous effort. We've been guys have been coming in on their own on weekends. Some people, when I went into the office, came in during break. I am extremely proud of our studio. I'm proud of the effort we're making, and I'm proud of our backers for the vast majority of them, their support and just wonderful, just being a wonderful community with a capital C.
It is.
So, it is. Thank you all very much. And Vellic and I blanked on your name, obviously, Kriss. So
That's
thank
fine.
you. So thank you very much for having me here, and I will be back again.
Ooh, you're teasing us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Teasing you about what?
About beta
Coming
stuff. No, I was talking about the game stuff. I don't know what he's talking about, so I want to know. I was talking about the game stuff. Talking about the stuff y'all working on. I'm like, I want to know.
I put in the email. We got 2 things that I wanted to save for the update, because it just would have felt silly to put out an update on Friday, leave those 2 things out, and then have another one early next week. It's like, what? No, why? Huh? No. We'll just hold up the update and, 2 good things. One, I know that every player, that's just it. Every player is going to be happy about. No, it's not beta, obviously. Because that would be ridiculous. Hey, we went from alpha to beta in one day.
Surprise!
Hey, hallelujah. It's a miracle. But we'll have good things this week.
All right, well, awesome. Thank you, Mark, for coming on. Thank you, everybody. We've got tons of great questions in chat. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Everybody, I know you've been looking at all of my merch and stuff behind me and everything, and keep that in mind because the next stretch goal is around like 100K to funding, so that's not very far off at all to get the new programmers and everything going. So keep that in mind. If you know anybody that's into MMOs and stuff, or you're on Facebook, maybe bump your Facebook stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Annoy all your friends with your Facebook posts. I'm not telling you to do it, but I am. And as for people who don't regularly watch the show, we do this every other Saturday at 6:30 p.m. So we will catch hopefully some of you in 2 weeks. And thank you again for coming.
And one last thing, because I'm way too far to come visit, just thank the team for me. I can't take the plane just to go visit you in the US, but yeah, thank them for me because they're doing an amazing job and they're really an amazing team.
I agree. Thanks so much, all.